According to self-reports, there are massive differences in our reactions to a romantic breakup, with some people experiencing very little in the way of psychological or bodily disturbances, while others suffer from insomnia, the onslaught of negative thoughts, a decline in physical health, and the onset of mental disorders such as anxiety and major depression. Yet, according to attachment theorists, our tendency to react to the end of a relationship with some degree of protest and distress is almost universal, even across cultures and regardless of age and gender. Other theorists take this even further and point to a three-step rejection response that starts with protest, continues through resignation and despair, and ends with reorganization. I'll describe these phases in the remainder of this post. Just like a baby who's lost their mother, the abandoned lover displays a range of protest reactions, which are designed to deter the attachment figure from leaving or to re-establish contact and closeness if they've done so already. These reactions that evolved for a time in our past, when finding a partner could be the difference between life and death, will often bring with them a sense of disbelief. And this will be followed by a mixture of sadness and anger, as one moment we plead and we beg and we cry out in pain, and the next moment we accuse and we blame and we cry out in rage. It's the chemical reactions from this first phase of the rejection response that are likely responsible for the focused attention and obsessive thinking, which drives the abandoned onwards as they work relentlessly and incessantly to regain the love they yearn for, the love of their abandoner. If they can't do that, the abandoned lover will eventually end their pursuit. If protest behaviors have failed to re-establish the connection, and the abandoned individual believes all hope is lost, those behaviors will increasingly give way to a form of resignation and a level of despair, of which the intensity is decided by the situation, the degree of attachment to the now former lover, and individual differences in attachment styles. This is a phase that's characterized not only by disturbances in sleep and eating patterns, but by feelings of lethargy, a profound sense of loneliness, and clinically measurable signs of depression. In this respect, the resignation and despair phase may well have evolved for two connected reasons. Firstly, to make us feel so weak, so helpless, and so insecure that we return to the cave and stay there. And secondly, as a signal to those around us that while we're in that cave, we could do with their help and support. The men and women who enter this second phase are also less likely to engage in the kinds of obsessive, compulsive, and intrusive behaviors of the first phase, since at this point, they lack the focus and motivation they need to do so. Though it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for the abandoned lover to make one last desperate plea to their abandoner, with a promise to harm themselves if that plea goes unanswered. The final phase of the breakup process will usually coincide with a growing and renewed interest in the world outside of the cave, as those once abandoned come to terms with their loss and begin to detach themselves psychologically from their former lover. It's that moment when we becomes I, and the person we were in love with is nothing more than a friend, a colleague, the mother or father of our children, or someone who used to play a major role in our lives, but does so no longer. That moment when all the important questions have been answered, or rendered as unimportant, and a story of the breakup has been created, in which closure can be sought and meaning can be found. In fact, by the time you've reached this point, the only question remaining is whether you've been restored or you've chosen to be reborn.